Alright, what's up guys? My name is Zach and this is my 1993 Mazda Miata, also known as an NA Miata. Now, as many of you guys know here on the channel, this is my daily driver. I drive it everywhere I go, the grocery store, the bank, to run errands, whatever it may be, no matter where I'm going, I am driving my Miata. And so I get this question every so often of, is it a good idea to daily drive a Miata? Should you do it? And so I've been doing it for the last 3 months straight. I've put almost 7,000 miles on the car in 3 months, so I've done my fair share of driving, and I want to share what I've learned with you guys. So that's the whole point of this video. I'm going to tell you guys the pros and cons of daily driving a Mazda Miata, and I'll tell you my personal thoughts at the end. But let's get some facts first. So we'll start off with fuel consumption. Now, this is the 1.6 liter. This is not the 1.8. 94 to 97 came with a 1.8. This is the 1.6 that was made from 1990 to 1993. So keep that in mind. The 1.8 will have different fuel economy. But through my calculations, through filling up the gas tank and doing my math on my little calculator, I get 25 miles to the gallon in the city, and I've gotten as high as 33 miles to the gallon on the highway. Now that sounds great, it really does, but you have to also take into account that the car only has a 10-gallon tank. Later generation NAs, the second half, the 1.8 liter, got a larger gas tank, so also factor that in. I believe it was around 12 gallons if I'm not mistaken, but 10-gallon tank, I can go about 250 miles on a tank. So you feel like you're filling up more, but every time you fill up, it's not that expensive. I live in Chicago, and I usually pay $15 to $18 per fill-up. The most I've ever paid on a fill-up was $19.50. So an entire fill-up has been under $20, which absolutely feels great. However, you do it more often. I fill up usually about twice a week. But before we get away from highway driving, this car will sit very happily at 80 miles an hour. For instance, I live in Chicago, like I said, and here's a picture of it in northern Door County, Wisconsin. It's about a 5-hour drive. Here it is at Purdue University, about a 2.5-hour drive. And here it is in Missouri, where I bought the car, which is a 6-hour drive. The car will sit on the highway happily at 80 miles an hour. However, you are sitting at about 4,000 RPM, 4,000 to 4,200 because of the diff. You can get a different diff. If you find a different diff, you can have it actually, 3.9. You can get it to sit lower in the RPMs, but this current car at 80 miles an hour sits at 4,000 RPMs. So that means it's a little bit loud, and I mean, you're sitting at 4,000 RPMs for hours and hours and hours. So just keep that in mind. Next up is the actual cabin room. Now, this is a 2-seater car, and so obviously you don't have a back seat. If you need a back seat, if you are known for carrying your siblings around, or you have to drive a lot of people around, it should be pretty obvious, but look elsewhere from a Mazda Miata, because you only get those 2 seats and those 2 seats only. Now, in terms of actual height, a lot of people think that when the roof comes up, their head will get squished. But I hope it comes across on camera, the roof actually goes up. You actually have a lot of headroom. I'm 5'11", and I have no issue clearing my head. Vision, some stoplights are a little bit too high, so I do have to sort of, look up at them, but that's, height is not an issue, and I'm a big guy. I think you could tell that I fit perfectly fine in here. It is a little car. Definitely when I'm driving it, it feels, little, but at the end of the day, I fit in it, and I fit in it fine. Like I said, I've driven this 5 hours on the highway. It does get a little bit old after that, sort of time. I would like to stretch my legs, but besides that, it's definitely doable. And you shouldn't have too much issue with comfort as long as you're not super tall. My friend who's 6'2" had some issues getting into one of these. So if you are above 6 foot, I'd highly recommend finding an NA to sit in to test before purchasing. If you're below 6 foot, you'll be fine. I promise you, 6 foot and under, you will be fine. If you are super tall and you're diehard set on owning an NA Miata, they do sell drop floors. Do a Google search, NA Miata drop floor. I don't need to go into all of that, but just do that search, drop floor in a Miata. It actually lowers the floor. You have to cut and weld, and that is an option if you are very tall. But let's talk about the trunk. So now around the back of the Miata, we got to talk about the trunk. The trunk is actually fairly spacious. Now the photo I'm showing on the video, I did remove the spare tire. There would normally be a spare tire in the upper right-hand corner, but I did actually remove that to give myself extra space. However, Mazda says that you can fit a golf bag, a bag of golf clubs in the trunk minus the driver. So take the driver club out, put that in your passenger seat. You can actually fit golf clubs in the trunk. The trunk is actually a lot more spacious than you'd think, but what people don't understand is that it's more shallow than it is deep, if that makes sense. So like, it's a lot deeper than you would think, like wow, but it's a lot shallower than you'd think. So tall objects are gonna have an issue. I cannot fit one of these wheels in the trunk. That's why I actually built that trunk to bolt a wheel on the top, because it wouldn't physically fit in the trunk. So in terms of a daily, this trunk is actually fine as long as you keep it clean, but it fills up very, very fast. Now comes the question of reliability. Is a 1993 Mazda Miata a reliable daily driver? And I'm sort of split on this, if I'm honest. Let's first talk about the engine. The 1.6 liter, it's a very solid motor. Mazda put it into a lot of cars. It's pretty easy to find parts. For instance, the alternator is about $150. A gasket kit, I believe, was like $100. Spark plugs were 40 some dollars. It's very easy to find parts. You're not going to have to search too hard to find parts for this car. And it's a little 1.6 liter. It's a buzzy little car that revs to 7,000. In that respect, yes, it is reliable, but the flip side of that coin is that you have to take into account. You have to take into account the fact that you are now driving a 30-year-old car. This particular model here in 2020 is 27 years old. It's older than me, and I've got parts that have gone bad. So you have to put up with 27-year-old car things. For instance, the rubber hoses should probably be switched out. They're 27-year-old pieces of rubber. I mean, you wouldn't drive on your tires for 27 years. Why would the coolant hoses be different? So I did do the coolant hoses in this car. The belts squeak, they get old, they sort of get brittle. You should change out the belts. After 30 years, you might need a fuel pump. Fuel pump has been pumping fuel for 30 years, you know, depending on the mileage. Things are going to be worn, things are going to be brittle where they were originally soft. You have to know this about any 27-year-old car. I don't care who makes it. I don't care what brand it is. I don't care if it's a 10-mile barn find. The plastics and the rubber in a car are going to age regardless. And so that's just something you have to know about owning an older vehicle. So, while it's reliable, this car has never not started for me. There are little things that will need replacing. Like I said, hoses, like I said, pulleys, like I said, tubes, things like that. You just have to understand that you are driving an old car. And so, with that being said, the fuel mileage is about 25 miles to the gallon in the city, 33 on the highway. That's pretty good. The interior cabin space isn't bad. You can definitely live with it. And in the trunk, again, decent, madly decent. And the parts, easy to find parts. And so, would I daily drive a Miata? No, I would not recommend daily driving an NA Mazda Miata. It's the truth. Now, I want this to be clear. I love this car. I love this car more than I like McChickens. And that should be obvious that I like this car a lot. But daily driving it has been interesting. On a back road with the stars above me, there's nothing better. There's nothing better in life than driving a Mazda Miata on a back road with a star-lit sky above you. Nothing better. But when you daily drive a car, you have to take into account rainy days, cold days, early mornings, late nights, and the Mazda Miata starts to tumble at those times. When it's cold, the belt squeaks so loud that it's an embarrassment in traffic. When it rains, my soft top leaks, and thus my seat is soaking wet when I get in the morning. And overall, just driving a 30-year-old car, I'm not sure what's going to break when. There's no recommended service times above 100,000 miles, and this has 140,000 on it. And the last reason is the safety. This only has one airbag and it doesn't work. It doesn't have a passenger airbag. It doesn't have very good rollover protection. It's a tiny car. Semis can't see you. And unfortunately, in the line of work that I do, I spend a lot of time on the highway in my job. I can't have something so dangerous and so unpredictable. So in the grand scheme of things, it's reliable, but reliable enough for me to get in every single day and have not a worry in the world? Unfortunately not. And so if you're watching this video and you want to get a Mazda Miata, please buy one, but not as your daily driver. If you have a brother's car you can borrow, or a parent's car, or a very friendly neighbor or girlfriend, that if this thing starts throwing 27-year-old problems at you, you can have a way to get to work, then by all means, buy one of these. But if this is going to be your only vehicle, unfortunately, I would look elsewhere. And that's how I feel. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you're looking for an NA Miata, I hope this sheds some light on some questions you might have had. Please leave a comment if you have any more questions, comments, or concerns. Do you daily drive your Miata? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Please let me know in the comment section down below. I will try to respond to as many as I can as time goes on. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.